Welcome to Accelerate Your Dental Practice, the show for dental professionals ready to grow smarter, faster, and stronger. Hosted by Michelle Affanato of Affinity Management Consulting and Malika Azargoon of Zar Dental Consulting. Each episode delivers practical strategies and expert advice to help you streamline operations, increase profitability, and reduce stress. Let's get started.
Welcome back to Accelerate Your Dental Practice. Here with Malika again, just the two of us having a nice casual chat about goals and your team and transparency and how you can get your team to buy in to your goals. So here we are, beginning of the year. We took some time, end of the year or even like right at the beginning of the year to set goals for 2026. What Malika and I were talking about a little bit, off screen was a lot of our clients don't like to share actual numbers with the team, right? They give a goal, but they don't really explain to the team like how they got to that goal, why that number is important. And I understand in some cases why doctors want to do that, right? Like they feel like it's none of the team's business on how much money you spend or what you spend it on. And I'm really not suggesting you give them a copy of your P&L. Like that is not what you need to do. And it's not their business really what you pay yourself. That's not their business. What they need to know is why you're setting the goal for what you're setting. Because if you just throw out a number, I need you to collect $150,000 a month. Malika, what do you think the team is thinking?
They think, oh my gosh, this doctor keeps, or my boss keeps, whining to us how we need to collect X 150K, because in their perception, they think you're potentially pocketing 100K a month in revenue. And a lot of times they end up getting salty about it. I mean, I hear it all the time. And one thing I always tell my clients is that, pull the curtains a little bit, let them see behind the scene what it takes to run this operation financially. I mean, I'll tell you from my own perspective, I'll never forget years ago when I was managing a practice, I in my head thought this office that I managed was making 200 some K. It was a very big operation a month. I was like, wow, I don't know why Dr. X doesn't have this kind of car, because she's really rolling in it. Like she's got a lot of money. But the minute she gave me the opportunity to look at her profit and loss on a very more broad side to show me how much it takes to keep the lights on, pay the rent, pay the staff, payroll, I was floored by how much the overhead of a dental practice was. I was like my first like aha moment of like, now I see why she's so stressed. And I think that if you, the listeners, do that with your team, I'm not asking you to tell them how much you're paying yourself. Yes, I agree. That's nobody's business. They don't need to know that. They don't need to know, let's say if your spouse is on payroll because he or she is doing your payroll and gets paid a certain amount, or if your child is on payroll. I'm not asking you to share that, but at least tell them how much is your rent, how much potentially you're paying overall in staff payroll, like just everything to run the operations for them to understand. Because I bet you if you do that, when you go to the goals of why your practice needs to have 150K of collections per month, they will really understand and they will be more focused and driven to get to that goal. Because then you're saying to them, listen, we need this goal because if we meet it, I'm willing to share 1% of this total collection, let's say, with you as a team, because that's when I know I paid everybody. The lights are on. There is some cash flow there for emergency reasons. And guess what? Now I have 1% in the bucket that I would like to share. And if this number grows, we grow together as a team. But if you keep this information private and you say, okay, gosh, January 2026, let's go. Now we were at 1K. Now we're going to be at a 150K. A lot of times the people that do not know, which is a lot of times the majority of your team, they just think you're being greedy and you're just making them work. They're making the same dollar amount. There was comments like, we had the same boring Christmas party or holiday party. My bonus was the same. They don't understand that maybe you were in the negative last year. Maybe you were, your overhead changed because of X, Y, and Z. Have some transparency, show some data, educate your your staff, because they don't know. A lot of them have no clue.
And what I find is, and I wish this could have been me, is a lot of our younger employees and I don't even want to put an age, but there's a lot of people that work in your practice that I bet you still live at home with their parents, right? So maybe they don't pay rent. Maybe they don't, have to pay for the electric bill or buy groceries and things like that. So a lot of people don't actually have a concept of how much it costs to keep things running. Like Malika said, like pull back the curtain a little bit. I love to do an exercise with the team and say, let's think about this, right? How much do you think it costs to run a dental practice for 1 month? And that means like supplies, marketing, electricity, the rent payment or your mortgage payment, payroll for the entire staff. Like when you start adding those things up, I get people that are like $8,000. And I'm like, whoa, right? Like I'm lucky I can run my house for $8,000 these days, let alone a dental practice with 10, 15 employees, right? So this is where like they don't understand. And in all honesty, they probably don't even care, right? Because all they think about is like, as long as I get my paycheck, I don't care. But by opening it up a little bit and giving them some insight into, hey, if we don't collect $150,000 this month, where do you think that money comes from? Right? It comes from either the doctor's own pocket or our reserve fund that has been put aside for bonuses, for raises, for new equipment. So if we're not hitting that goal, then it does take away from other things. And every single person on this team can help us get to that goal and keep the expenses to a minimum, right? Like I was talking to a doctor yesterday and we're having a big meeting today with the team. And we're going to talk about some things about like being conscious about stuff, not wasting stuff. Like my favorite is, well, one, like how many gloves do people go through in one appointment, right? Like people just like, they don't even care.
Right.
And it's like gloves are not cheap. But in addition, like my favorite one to talk about is Bond. That little tiny bottle of Bond that you watch them put like 5 drops into the little dish. And then you're like, that bottle's like $200. So if we just keep squeezing away, right? Like they're being wasteful. Why are they being wasteful? Because they don't always understand. So one of my favorite activities to do with team members is The Price is Right. I don't know if you've ever done that with your teams, Malika, but like it's really eye-opening to those teams.
Yeah. I do the Monopoly game where I give everybody money and I say, okay, like this is how much money you have. What do you think you can pay for with this money in your hand? And as you said, they have no clue, especially the younger generation, because as you said, they're living at home. So the groceries being purchased by parents. No one's paying a rent or mortgage. It's more like, do I have enough money to get my Starbucks? Do I have enough money to get my outfit, go out, have gas, and potentially plan a trip with my girlfriends? So to be able to educate them and say, okay, you have, let's say X amount of dollars in Monopoly money. Let me know from this list of items. I want you to allocate how much would you pay. You'll be shocked. A lot of them think rent is like $1,000 for, and I'm like, how about 8,500? How about 10,000? They're like, what? And what I found out, and I don't know if Michelle, you experienced this, when the education happens and they understand, a lot of times staff will approach the owner and say, Doc, we don't need this service anymore. We haven't been using it. Are you aware you're paying for this? Because now they're understanding and they're being an advocate for you. Now they're saying, we don't need this service because we already have this service through this company and they're cross-contaminating. We don't need it. Or I learned from another friend that works at another office that they did this to save money on ordering. Suddenly they become very much involved because you've allowed them a peek into behind the scene of what it takes to run the operations. And it really is helpful because they're also looking at it from a different angle. I always say, especially in the admin side, because a lot of times doctors don't get to spend as much there. So for the admin team to turn around and say, we already have this communication platform. This one's doing this, but are you aware that these two pretty much do the same thing? What do you think if we drop this one? Whereas before, you just think that, oh, these services are working. I don't want to rock the boat with my team. I'm just going to keep paying for it. So it's really, or when you try to charge, let's say, the merchant fee to the patients, you get a lot of pushback from staff because they don't understand what it takes to run the operations. But the minute they're educated, they're like, oh yeah, let's do that tomorrow. Because then they're
Yeah.
positive about it and they're willing to lean in and be part of the advocate and making the patients understand and be positive about it. Versus if you just tell them and there's no understanding of the why, they're not going to do it.
And you just said it perfectly, Malika, if they don't understand the why. And I find that in any aspect of the dental practice, not just about like setting the goals, but also like if you're asking them to do something. My favorite example is the insurance eligibility and breakdown, benefit breakdown form, right? If you give them a form and you say like, I need you to call and get all of these, if you don't explain to them why every bit of information on there is important, they're going to think like it's not a big deal and they're going to skip things that are important. So this generation of employees, they need to know why. Why am I doing this? I will do it, but you have to tell me why, because nobody wants to do busy work.
No.
And now when you determine your goal, right, you need to discuss it throughout the month. Don't just be like, hey, like our collection goal is 125,000 or 150,000. Every week you should be like, hey guys, we collected this much. We're halfway to the goal. We're really excited about this. Or the last week, like, hey, let's really make a push to like get this money in. If insurance comes in, like make sure it gets posted right away. Like really work with that. When it comes to collection goals, I don't give a daily goal. You can't give a daily collection goal because you have no control over the insurance, right?
No.
But I look at it and say, if I know we need to collect 150,000, then this is what we have to produce every day in order to get to that 150,000, right? Like that's my whole course topic that I'm talking about at the Practice Management Power Day, which I'm super excited about. That is like, how do you reverse engineer that collection goal? So now if I'm looking at this is what I have to produce every day, that is something your team has control over, right? Making sure that schedule stays full. Making sure like they're looking at the schedule and are there any additional services? Like, hey, like this person really could benefit from fluoride. Or you know what? Like, what if we talk to this patient here? Like they're constantly chipping fillings, their bite is off. Like, what if we start talking to this person about Invisalign? Maybe it's just like shifting their bite or something. Like they will start searching for things themselves to help you get to those goals.
Absolutely.
If they know why we need it.
Absolutely. Again, and you know, I say this again, like I get a lot of pushback because my doctors will say, like, I don't want them to know everything. And me and Michelle are not saying that. Like there is things that are private. I have clients that still want to do their own payroll because they don't want the staff to know how much they're getting paid. I'm not, again, I think that's great. Like I'm private myself. I do my own payroll because I want to keep it that way. But that being said, there's so many things that you still can share without sharing too much to educate your team. Because the minute they know, hey guys, we just paid $3,000 in 2 weeks for supplies, they're just going to be like, what? That's a lot. Well, because you keep adding to cart, or you're wasting bond, or you're just using too many gloves. This is why we're saying, like, you know, because if you don't say the why, they're going to say, oh, she's so cheap, or he's so cheap and stingy. So this is why it's so important to educate them and put the time away to do that. One of my offices, what he does, which I love, is the first week of January, he pulls up his screen, PowerPoint, and literally says, supplies in 2025. He just says it, you know, rent, you know, CE events, food, whatever it is. Like he has like his top 10 that he lists, and then he goes into details. He says, can anybody help me out? How can we save on supplies? And you'll be surprised. They're all raising their hands saying what they think could be done. And because what he's doing is he's getting their buy-in. He's explained the why, and then he's just energizing them to understand that, okay, our goal for 2026 is X. I want to give you guys a total bonus of this. And in order to get that, we need to do the following. Who's in it with me? And I will tell you, in the last 4 years that I've worked with this gentleman, they have met goal every single year because he lifted the curtains, he gave them the why, and he's got them, you know, focus on wanting that. So they're now contributing to it. They're like, yes, we can do this. We'll do that. We're involved. You know, we'll say yes. It's easier to get the yes from the team when you share all that data with them.
Exactly. And again, you don't have to share everything and it doesn't have to be exact.
Right.
But making sure that they have a good understanding, right? It's almost like, what is that app? Rocket Money? Like, have you seen the ads for that?
Yes,
Where it's like,
yes, yes,
you get
yes.
this app and it tells you like how many extra things, like you have 3 DoorDash subscriptions or like something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like Malika mentioned earlier, like your staff will say, like, I don't understand why we have Weave and NextHealth. They do the same thing.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Like Weave is, yes, your phone system, and NextHealth might not have a phone system, or it does, but like it'll start to look at, like, we have 2 companies that send out patient communication. We have 2 companies that do this. Like, they will help you to start to look at things.
Yeah.
And it also will help you, like, if you have a team member after you go through this whole thing and they still don't care, is that the right person to be on your team? You're not being cheap, you're not being stingy. You know, I always say, like, if we can keep expenses down to here, it's more money for you guys. A bonus, a raise, CE, a fun activity for the staff. Like, it's something like that versus, you know what, like, I can't afford it because, you know, we just spent all of this money, you know, because I had to replace the autoclave because people weren't doing the maintenance properly on it. Or we dropped yet another sensor at what, $10,000-$12,000 a
Yeah,
sensor. Like,
yeah.
we're treating it like it's nothing. So these are really important things to talk to the team about. And I get your hesitation that you don't want them to know it, but I, just like Malika, my doctors that share it with their team, they usually hit goal. They usually do. And then the team's always like, well, what's next? What can we do next? Like, what can we do more? How can we help this? And they're always coming with advice versus sitting there during a meeting and being really quiet and be like, oh yeah, I was the one who broke that sensor. So like, putting their head down, it's my
Mhm.
fault that we're not getting a bonus. Like, just being open and honest with the team, right? Because you want them to be open and honest with you of whether they're happy, they're learning, like how they feel in the office. So it kind of works both ways as the leader of the practice.
100%. And what I've noticed in one of these meetings, the staff member will raise their hand and say, but you don't need to, doc, spend money on this. We don't need like opening. They'll even be a gatekeeper and try to help you. Like, stop using this. We don't need it. Or just being too generous with this. We don't need to have this kind of water in the waiting room, for example. The patients are going to be fine with the Costco water. Like, I've heard them. And it's like, it's funny because suddenly then it becomes their practice as much as it's your practice. And that's what you want. That's the kind of team you want that's going to feel that. But they're not going to feel that if you don't share information. You can't get upset because you're telling me your staff is not in it and they don't care if you don't give them enough information. If you're just telling them, here's your job description, clock in, just make sure my patients are happy and, you know, on time, that's great. That's an important piece of the puzzle. But if you're not showing the financial part so that they can also make sure that your practice is profitable, don't get mad at them that they don't have a buy-in, because you didn't allow them to have a buy-in into that part of your practice.
That's really important, right? It used to be, right? I've been in dentistry a long time, and it used to be the fact that like the team doesn't need to know anything. Like, if we give them the bare minimum, we make it, because that's when practices were run, I don't want to say like a family, or weren't really run like a business, but it is a business, right? Like, yes, I understand your team members are like we want to treat them like family, we want to treat them well, but it's a business. And we all know, right, the cost of everything has been going up, but the insurance reimbursements, if they have gone up, they're not keeping up with the cost of living. So yes, your team is a family, but we cannot give away everything to them. Like, we cannot keep giving them stuff without them supporting the financial growth and health of the practice. That is a
100%.
very real thing right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I also say, I challenge you to also look at your credit card statements. Yes, you probably have a bookkeeper or you have an accountant, but you only know what's charged on your credit card. If you can't do monthly, do quarterly. Be curious, highlight some things. And also, I feel like for me personally, it disciplines me when I look at my statement, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I spent X amount of dollars on this. I don't know why I keep doing that. It really gets me to be more focused and be careful of what I'm doing. And I say the bigger your business, the harder I get it to keep, control of this. But it's great just to skim through your statement. I'm a little old school. I print mine literally, and and I highlight things that, that stand out to me, because I'm like, I cannot believe I spent this much, for example, on Uber. I could be better with this, for example. Maybe I should rent a car when I go on a client site now. I don't need to do Uber. So whatever it may be, just see what that is for you. Challenge yourself. And also, that's a great way to even educate your team on it. Like when you print your statement, maybe at your next meeting, say, how many people, who can tell me how much we spent, for example, in Costco for water, whatever you guys order from wherever. See what people tell you. And I bet you when you put the actual number up, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And then just, get them to tell you, let them have the buy-in. How can we make this better? How can we get this price down? You'll be shocked on what all the ideas they're going to have for you. And that's when you get them in, and they're literally focused to help you bring those costs down. And what you'll notice is that the next meeting, they'll raise their hand and say, did you look at the statement for last month? Is it better? They want to know, because they want to know if it worked, whatever they're contributing to help with the cost.
So a great example of that, Malika, is I've been working with a doctor for a while, and he has a large practice. When I say large, we're probably talking like 30 plus employees.
Wow, that's
right? So one of the things I love about them is like they really take care of the team and want to celebrate the team for birthdays, anniversaries, things like that. But the doctor was looking and he was like, are you kidding me at how much I spend every month? Birthday cards, birthday treats, and gifts for team members. So like with 30 people, you could have multiple birthdays in 1 month. And so every time it was someone's birthday, like they would get a card, they would get a gift, and then they would get like their own treats and then a treat for the office. And so after some discussion with the staff, they're like, this is really great, but why can't we just do it all? Like we have a monthly team meeting. Why can't at the monthly team meeting, like, yes, everybody still gets an individual gift and a card, but like there's one cake to celebrate for everybody. And do you know how much that saves them? So like this year, they're changing that up. So even the little things, and the team, as much as they appreciate getting their own special day, when they look at like, hey, this is how much I spent on like birthday celebrations and anniversary celebrations, like then they decided like, okay, we're not celebrating everybody's 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year. Like we're making a big deal out of 1 year,
right?
5 years, 10 years, like things like that. You think that the team loves getting stuff in. Who doesn't, right? Like, oh, it's a free treat on my birthday.
Right.
But that's not going to make them a better employee. That's not going to make them show up on time or put more effort in, right? And I get a lot of doctors who say to me, like, I didn't even get a thank you for that. And so, like, look at some of those things too. I don't want you to take things away from your team, but how can it be more cost effective for you to still celebrate them, but not break the bank?
Absolutely. And like you said, like your clients shared with the team, and they're like, we're okay with it being combined with the meeting, because they're still getting their personal gift, and the cake is celebrated with everybody. I have actually an office that does exactly that. They have June birthdays is one day. They just pick a date. Everybody still gets their treat. But the bigger your team is, the harder it is to maintain this kind of cost. And also it's timely too. Someone has to go buy the cake. You got to find time to sing happy birthday. So to have it all at one time, it's June birthdays, September birthdays, whatever it may be. It just aligns more beautifully together. And it saves the office money.
Yeah.
I love it.
Exactly. Taking a look, like Malika said, at the credit card statements, pull out your P&L, highlight the things. I mean, there's industry standards for everything, right? For marketing, for supplies, for payroll. Like, look at that and look where you fall. And even if you're within range, right? Because we all know the more money we collect, the lower the percentage goes down, right? So there's ways to be like, you don't have to look at it and be like, oh my gosh, we have to cut back on marketing. No, we have to collect more, right? If we're producing and collecting more, then you don't have to cut back on anything. But there are ways to look at it and be like, we're spending like, extra money on this. Or, I love the idea of fresh flowers in the office, but that adds up.
Yeah.
That adds up. So like, is there an alternative? Like, fake flowers that you have like a nice little scent or something that goes with it. Like, so look at some of those things. I love the idea. This is something like, because I work with so many startups, like they're always looking for like, what can we do to set ourselves apart? And I'm sure you've seen this, Malika, is the fresh baked cookies.
Yes.
They love to bake the cookies, to have the smell of the cookies in the office. That lasts like a month. And then the staff's like, are you kidding me? Like, this is how much money we're spending on it. Even if they get the giant tub of cookie dough from Costco or whatever. But it's like time consuming for the staff.
As I said, the time to put it in the little toaster oven, and then
Yep.
it's just the logistics of it too.
And they're like, I'm worried about filling the schedule, and someone's complaining because there's not fresh baked cookies out there, right? So like, really look at those things. I love those little extra touches, but is it really cost effective in terms of like what you're purchasing, but also what you're buying, right? And the time that it's
And
taking.
also, is it sustainable? I always say this is a great idea, but I want you guys to decide: is this sustainable? Because the minute your patients come in and have the smell of the cookies, and they come in 6 months, it's not there, they're gonna be like, "Where's the smell of the cookies? Oh no, the ownership change. Like they come there, they have a positive experience. We all do, and we wonder why it changed. What happened?
Yeah. So I mean, I love all these little extra touches. Believe me, I do. But when you look at it, is it really worth it? Right? It's the same thing when I tell people like ordering scrubs. Do you have to order Grey's Anatomy or Figs or like the really, really expensive ones? Yeah, they look great. They look great. But let's be honest with how people treat their stuff, right? Like, and then they get ruined and then they expect you to replace them all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you could get cheaper scrubs that still look just as nice.
Right.
Especially if you know, like, I'm going to be replacing them all the time.
Yeah.
So those are some things to do a little bit of a deeper dive. And I just feel, honestly, no offense, docs, but you went to school to learn dentistry, right? And most of you did like a science or something like that as your undergrad, and then you go to dental school. There's no business training for you. So when you go into this, you rely on the team that's around you, your CPA, your office manager, your consultant and stuff to help guide you through some of these things, right? And yes, you might have big dreams on certain things, but listen to advice of people who've done it before. Like, I work with startups all the time. Malika works with startups all the time. And I have people that are like, I need to have the best of this, and I want my team to have that. And I love it. I love it. But from a business perspective, is it really the right choice?
Especially as you said, in a startup, you want to be very cautious where you spend your money. I know I get it's like I use the analogy like you're building your new home and you want the best of the best in that home. But is it sustainable? Are there things that you can just not do right now until you're profitable? And then you can add the fancy counter or the fancy chair you want in your room or whatever it may be. But no need to go crazy, because then what happens, Michelle, is we get the panic calls.
Yeah.
Cash flow is getting tight now. What do I do? And sometimes I wish I could say, remember 9 months ago when I told you don't do X, Y, and Z, because we're here to protect you. We want to make sure you're successful, but sometimes we don't need to have the fancy version of everything, because the key is to have butts in the seat, become profitable, and then you can go back and change things or add things that are not necessary in order for you to run operations and function as a startup, especially the first couple years.
Right. So I hope you have learned a thing or two. Really evaluate your numbers. Look at where, like, maybe there is areas to save on. Maybe you got to make a push to collect more, but peel back that curtain a little bit and let your team know why they're doing this, why it's important that we collect this amount of money, why it's important that we, don't go through 10 pairs of gloves for each appointment. Like, they need to understand that, the why behind it versus just don't do it. Get the buy-in from your team. Be as transparent as you feel comfortable with, and celebrate the wins with them.
Yeah, that's huge, Michelle. Thanks for sharing that part. I think celebrating with them is big. Don't just go to them or have meetings when things are not going well, because trust me, they know, and they get frustrated because I have offices tell me, we only have meetings when the doctor's stressed out. We don't have a meeting when we meet goal. We don't really talk about it. We just keep going. So definitely celebrate the wins with them.
So hopefully you can use some of this, implement it into your practice. As always, Malika and I are available if you have specific questions regarding your office. We'd love to chat with you. Until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Accelerate Your Dental Practice. To learn more about your hosts and explore consulting services tailored to your practice, visit affinitymanagement.co for Michelle Affanato and zardentalconsulting.com for Malika Azargoon. Be sure to follow, rate, and share the podcast. And join us next time for more tools, tips, and strategies to help you accelerate your dental practice.